We're going to start a new lesson 72, and it's on Italy and what is going on in Italy. Lesson 72 is about a man named Francis of Assisi, and he actually became a monk or a friar, so a lot call him Saint Francis of Assisi. So before we talk about Francis, we need to talk a little bit about Italy, because Italy was booming. Now we talked about England in medieval times, we talked about Russia, we talked about Czechoslovakia, and now we're going to go down to Italy. Remember, Rome is in Italy, and the Italians, the whole culture down there has been a center for many, many years in the Roman Empire. So we're going back and we'll see why all of a sudden it started booming down there. The industry started booming as they started trading with Asia. And we'll find that they were trading with Asia in silk and different spices and so. And the Crusades had been happening, where after the Crusades, they actually were trading with the Muslim nations. Italy became this powerful trade center. In fact, we find that Francis's father was actually a cloth merchant. And so he was pretty well-to-do. So most people there weren't so in poverty like they had been before. As we get into more of the Dark Ages, we'll find otherwise. But during this time, that the people were looking towards buying and selling. So this trade crafts, the people that were in the trades, they would form what was called guilds. And these guilds would be about groups of people that would get together that were doing the same occupation, and they would protect each other. They would protect each other when they were on the roads from bandits, and they would protect each other by setting certain rules and standards so they couldn't rip the people off, that they would be sincere in what they were doing. And also during this time, the guilds became very powerful, but also during this time, universities started forming. I say, we're talking a long time ago. We're talking over 1,000 years ago. And so these universities, come to find out, some of the first universities were in the Muslim countries. And then in Italy, they started opening up schools. The first schools that actually formed had to do with the medical profession, because they wanted to train physicians, not just have doctors go out there and say, "Oh, I'm a doctor," and then do whatever they wanted. They wanted to set standards. So in Salerno, Italy, was famous for the physicians, and they set in actually Frederick II was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he made the law that no one could practice medicine until they were examined and approved by this school. And so they couldn't go out and say, I'm a doctor. They have to be, if they approved the school, they knew that they had a background in medicine, which was very important. The School of Law also opened in 1088. That's a long time ago for the law school. They would look into the laws. And the other, if you go north, we'll see the cathedrals and we go into France, we'll see the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and they had a guild of teachers. And so they wanted to make sure when a teacher was teaching that they were teaching the right way too. So they started these areas of study, and the four main areas of study were medicine, law, theology, and the arts. And many wealthy contributors contributed to the universities and the schools. So this was a long time ago that they started the system of education. Then in 1100 to 1200, we'll look at the Italian area, and a lot of these smaller towns became what's called city-states. They decided each city would have its own laws and want to run themselves, instead of having all of Italy as one united country. And so what happened then was that there certain parts of Italy, as we know, the Papal States where the Pope was, the Pope was actually in the northern area. And then we have in the east was more of the Byzantine control. And then we have some families that also controlled the states. And some of the families, let's see some of their names. the Medici family were in Florence, and the Visconti family in Milan. And these different city-states they would hire to protect themselves instead of depend on the Italian as a whole. They would protect, and in order to protect them, they'd have to hire armies, and these were called mercenaries. And they hired these mercenaries during this time, and a lot of them would have family fights, and their cities would fight among each other, and all these things would happen in the midst of these wealthy families in Italy, and it went on for quite a few years. Another thing that they did is they were very well in Italy, because most of the big cities that were on the sea, they had great shipbuilding skills, and they would take these old crusader ships that were used for trade, and they'd build them up. And so then they would take off and they'd travel down the Silk Road and all these areas. And a lot of the Italians were becoming pretty wealthy compared to the rest of Europe. So this is what was going on there. Another thing that was happening was the College of the Cardinals. So the Pope, they said, the Pope, how do we pick a Pope? You know, so they had this college where these guys, these cardinals, they called them cardinals, would go to school. And then they would sit down and the cardinals would decide on their pontiff, which was the Pope. So what a major, you know, kind of a configuration going on here in Italy. And this is the time that Francis lived, and that Francis became an important person. Well, Francis, let me take a little break here.